Your mind forgot it was a tool. Your mind is a magnificent tool that forgot it was a tool. And the strange part is, you probably don't even notice that it's happening. Because when your mind speaks, it doesn't sound like a tool speaking. Sounds like you. Tells you what you should do, what you should avoid, who you should trust, what people think about you, whether you're falling behind, whether you're good enough, whether your future is going to work out. And because the voice is inside your own head, you rarely stop to question its authority. You simply listen. A thought appears, and you treat it like information. Another thought appears, and you treat it like a warning. Another appears, and suddenly you're anxious about something that hasn't even happened. But here's the strange question. Who gave your mind permission to become the boss of your life? Because the mind was never supposed to be the boss. It was supposed to be a tool, a very sophisticated one, a magnificent one, but still, a tool. Think about a hammer. A hammer is incredibly useful. You can build a table with it. You can repair a chair. You can construct a house. But imagine leaving a hammer on your workbench, and somehow the hammer starts deciding what you're going to build. You walk into the room and the hammer says, "Today we're building a chair." You say, "Actually, I need to fix the door." The hammer says, "No, we're building a chair." You'd think something had gone terribly wrong, because the tool is supposed to serve the person using it, not the other way around. A calculator doesn't suddenly decide what you should calculate. A camera doesn't decide what you should photograph. A computer doesn't decide what your life should mean. Tools don't determine the purpose. They help you carry it out. But your mind, somewhere along the way, it started doing something different. It started generating the purpose itself. You can see this in something as simple as getting a message. Someone sends you, "Hey, can we talk later?" That's all they said. 5 words. But watch what your mind does with them. Why do they want to talk? Did I do something? Are they angry? Is something wrong? Maybe they don't like me anymore. Maybe something happened. And suddenly, you are emotionally living inside a situation that doesn't actually exist. The message was real. The story wasn't. But your mind generated the story so quickly that you didn't notice the difference. And that's one of the mind's greatest abilities. Can take incomplete information and turn it into a complete reality. Think about how many times you've suffered over something that never happened. You imagined a conversation. You imagined someone rejecting you. You imagined failing. You imagined being embarrassed. You imagined losing someone. You imagined what people were saying about you behind your back. You imagined your future going badly. And your body reacted as if the event were already happening. Your heart races. Your stomach tightens. Your muscles tense. Your sleep disappears. But look at what actually happened. Nothing. The event was created inside your head. And yet your nervous system responded to it. That's how powerful the mind is. And that's also why you need to understand it. Because a powerful tool can become dangerous when you forget that it is a tool. Your mind was built for survival. And that matters. Because the mind isn't necessarily trying to make you happy. It isn't necessarily trying to make you peaceful. It isn't sitting inside your skull thinking, "How can I help this person have a beautiful, fulfilling existence?" Its oldest priority is much simpler. What could go wrong? That's useful when you're walking through a dangerous environment. It's useful when you're crossing a road. It's useful when you're dealing with an actual threat. It's useful when you need to solve a difficult problem. Pattern recognition, prediction, threat detection, problem solving. These abilities helped human beings survive. But the modern mind has a strange problem. The tiger isn't standing outside your cave anymore. So the mind finds other things. An unread message becomes a threat. A social interaction becomes a threat. A mistake becomes a threat. Someone else's success becomes a threat to your identity. An uncertain future becomes a threat. And suddenly, The same survival machinery that once helped keep you alive is being used to determine whether you're worthy of being alive. That's where things go wrong. Your mind can solve a mathematical problem, but can it objectively determine your worth? No. It can remember something embarrassing from 5 years ago, but does remembering it mean the event still defines you? No. It can predict possible futures, but does predicting something make it true? No. It can compare you with another person, but does comparison tell you your value? No. And yet, we allow the mind to make these judgments constantly. You look at someone who is ahead of you and your mind says, "You're behind." You make a mistake and it says, "You're incompetent." Someone rejects you and it says, "You're not enough." You don't achieve something and it says, "You're a failure." Notice the jump. Something happened. Then the mind added a conclusion, and somehow, the conclusion became your identity. Imagine you hire a security guard. His job is to look for danger, so he spends all day watching the doors. Someone walks past. He gets suspicious. A noise happens. He investigates. A stranger enters. He becomes alert. That's his job. But imagine the security guard eventually starts walking around your house at night saying, "Something is wrong." You ask, "What?" He says, "I don't know." Then why are you worried? Because something might happen. You ask, "Is there evidence?" No. Then why are you waking everyone up? Because I don't want to miss a threat. That's what an overactive mind can look like. It doesn't need certainty. It only needs possibility. Maybe something will go wrong. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe you'll fail. Maybe you'll lose everything. Maybe you're wasting your life. Maybe you're not enough. And because the mind is designed to detect threats, it tends to treat maybe as something worth investigating. So you spend hours solving problems that don't exist yet. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Your mind doesn't just generate thoughts. It generates stories about you. At some point, you stop saying, "I failed at something," and start saying, "I'm a failure." You stop saying, "I feel anxious," and start saying, "I'm an anxious person." You stop saying, "I don't know what I'm doing," and start saying, "I'm lost." You stop saying, "Someone rejected me," and start saying, "Nobody wants me." The experience becomes the identity. And once the mind creates an identity, it starts collecting evidence to support it. If you believe you're socially awkward, you'll remember the awkward conversation. You'll forget the 10 normal conversations. If you believe you're unsuccessful, you'll notice everyone ahead of you. You'll overlook everything you've already accomplished. If you believe you're unlovable, one person's rejection will feel like confirmation of a lifelong truth. The mind becomes a lawyer, and once it chooses a case, it starts building evidence. That's why you shouldn't believe every thought simply because it is familiar. Familiar doesn't mean true. A thought you've had 10,000 times is still just a thought. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I'm behind," the repetition doesn't make it a fact. If you repeatedly think, "Something is wrong with me," the repetition doesn't make it a diagnosis. If you repeatedly imagine, "My future is going to be terrible," the repetition doesn't turn imagination into prophecy. But when you've lived with a thought long enough, stop sounding like a thought. Start sounding like reality. And that's the trap. So let's try something. Right now, think about something you're worried about. Don't choose the biggest problem in your life. Just something small. Maybe something you need to do tomorrow. Maybe a conversation. Maybe money. Maybe work. Maybe someone else's opinion. Now listen carefully to the language your mind uses. Does it say, "This could happen"? Or does it say, "This will happen"? Does it say, "I made a mistake"? Or, "I'm an idiot"? Does it say, "They haven't replied yet"? Or, "They don't care about me"? The difference seems tiny, but it isn't. The first version describes reality. The second version adds interpretation. And most of our suffering happens somewhere between those two. This doesn't mean you should stop thinking. That would be another misunderstanding. Your mind is an incredible instrument. You need it. You need memory. You need planning. You need reasoning. You need imagination. You need language. You need the ability to predict consequences. If you're planning an exam, you need your mind. If you're building a career, you need your mind. If you're solving a problem, you need your mind. If you're learning something difficult, you need your mind. The goal isn't to destroy the mind. The goal is to put it back in its proper position. Use it when you need it. Put it down when you don't, just like you would with any other tool. Imagine you're carrying a screwdriver everywhere. You use it to fix something, then you finish. But instead of putting it down, you keep holding it. You go to sleep holding it. You eat while holding it. You talk to people while holding it. You walk around with it in your hand all day. Eventually your hand hurts, and someone asks, "Why don't you put it down?" You say, "I can't. This is my screwdriver." That's essentially what identification with thought can become. You don't just use the mind. You carry it everywhere. You're eating, but thinking. You're walking, but thinking. You're talking, but thinking about what you said. You're watching a movie, but thinking about tomorrow. You're lying in bed, but negotiating with imaginary futures. You're physically in one place, while mentally living somewhere else. And because you've been doing it for years, you assume that's simply what being alive feels like. It isn't. It's what being continuously identified with thought feels like. Here's another example. Imagine you're driving somewhere you've driven hundreds of times. You're familiar with the road. You're not consciously thinking about every movement. Your hands know what to do. And suddenly you realize, I've been driving for 10 minutes and barely remember the journey. You were physically there, but your attention was somewhere else. Now imagine doing that with your entire life. You're eating without tasting, walking without seeing, listening without hearing, talking without actually being present. Because you're constantly inside the commentary. What should I do? What should I have done? What will happen? What do they think? Am I doing enough? Am I becoming successful? Am I wasting time? And life is happening while you're busy reviewing it. So how do you take the tool back? Not by fighting your mind. That's important. If you try to force yourself, stop thinking. You've already created another thought. Now you're fighting your mind with your mind. Instead, notice. That's the first skill. The next time your mind says, something bad is going to happen, don't immediately argue. Don't say, no, everything will be fine. Just notice, I'm having a prediction. That's it. The next time it says, they don't like me. Notice, I'm having an interpretation. The next time it says, I'm not good enough. Notice, my mind is making a judgment about me. That tiny bit of distance matters, because you're no longer completely inside the thought. You're observing it. And here's a practical exercise you can use every day. For 5 minutes, sit somewhere without your phone. Don't try to meditate perfectly. Don't try to empty your mind. Just observe what the mind does. It will jump. It will plan. It will remember. It will judge. It will create imaginary conversations. It will suddenly remind you about something you forgot 3 days ago. Let it. Your job isn't to stop it. Your job is to notice. There goes the mind again. That's all. And every time you notice, you are practicing the difference between awareness and thought, between using the tool and being controlled by it. Then take the exercise into real life. When you're angry, don't immediately send the message. When you're anxious, don't immediately obey the prediction. When you're insecure, don't immediately seek reassurance. When you're comparing yourself, don't immediately open another profile. When your mind tells you, check your phone, wait 10 seconds. Just 10. Notice the urge. You don't have to fight it. You're simply proving something to yourself. An urge can appear without becoming an action. That's enormous. Because once you understand that, you begin to realize you have more space than you thought. And maybe this is the real problem. You thought freedom meant getting control over everything outside you. Getting the right relationship, the right career, the right body, the right amount of money, the right circumstances, the right future. But you can't control everything outside you. You never could. What you can learn is how to relate differently to what happens inside you. A thought appears. You notice it. An emotion appears. You allow it. A desire appears. You examine it. A fear appears. You don't automatically obey it. That's a different kind of freedom. Not freedom from having a mind. Freedom from being completely ruled by it. And there will still be difficult days. You'll still overthink. You'll still react. You'll still lose yourself in thought. Don't turn that into another identity. Don't say, I'm failing at being mindful. That's the mind creating another problem. Just notice. Come back. Again. And again. And again. You don't need to win against your mind. You need to stop handing it the keys every time it makes a suggestion. Because your mind is magnificent. Don't misunderstand the message. It's one of the most extraordinary things you possess. Can imagine things that don't exist. Can understand mathematics. Can create music. Can build civilizations. Can remember decades. Can solve problems. Can create stories. It can look at the universe and wonder about its own existence. That's incredible. But the same instrument that can calculate the trajectory of a rocket can also spend 3 hours worrying about a conversation that lasted 30 seconds. The same mind that can solve complex problems can convince you that one mistake defines your entire life. The same imagination that can create art can create terrifying futures that never happen. That's why intelligence alone isn't enough. Powerful mind still needs direction. So the next time your mind starts talking, listen, but don't automatically obey. Let it suggest. Let it calculate. Let it warn you. Let it plan. Let it imagine. Then ask, is this actually useful right now? If yes, use it. If not, put it down. You don't have to answer every thought. You don't have to solve every possibility. You don't have to defend yourself against every imaginary accusation. You don't have to figure out your entire future tonight. Sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is stop using the tool. Look around. Feel your feet. Hear the room. Take the next breath. And come back to the life that's actually happening. Because your mind is a magnificent tool. But it was never meant to be your master. And perhaps growing up isn't learning how to think more and more. Perhaps sometimes it's learning when not to listen.